From the top of the Powder Hill Tower here in the Pike Lake unit of the Kettle Moraine State Forest, you can see for miles on a clear day like today. In just a few minutes, Elizabeth Cramer visits the Shalom Wildlife Sanctuary here in Washington County. And then we'll look at the remains of an elk that died some 1,500 years ago in Bayfield County. But first, we'll visit Ledge Rock Distillery in Fond du Lac County, where Jay Retzer makes craft whiskey from grown grain on his family farm. I'm Dan Small, and it's time once again for Outdoor Wisconsin.
Summer to fall, winter to spring, from Green Bay to where the St. Croix sings, from Kettle Moraine to Superior Shore. Outdoor Wisconsin, outdoor Wisconsin.
We've come out to Ledge Rock Distillery in the town of Empire, just southeast of Fond du Lac, and I'm talking with Jay Retzer. He's the co-owner of Ledge Rock. Jay, this is a relatively new facility, isn't it?
That's right. We just opened about a year ago. Would you care to come inside and see how things look?
Absolutely.
All right.
I love this building. Did you design it?
Yes.
Well, Jay, this facility is actually on your family farm, right?
That is correct. My family has farmed in this area for roughly 50 years. This particular piece of property was purchased later, but we still incorporate our original homestead into the mix. As you look around the tasting room, you can see we used reclaimed barnwood on our fixtures in our bar. And right behind me is a piece of wood that's actually very special to me because that came off my family's original barn at our original farmstead. Roughly 5 years ago, I really wanted to learn how to make whiskey. And what I was expecting to be pretty much a hobby turned into this. And so for me, this all starts outside the building. It starts out on our small grain farm. We run about 500 acres of corn, soybeans, and wheat on our farm. When I discovered this craft distilling boom was taking off across the country, I was invigorated right away because I knew I had the right grains that needed to be used to make bourbon, vodka, and gin. We could actually take something that we were already producing. We didn't have to change anything on the farm side, and basically become our own end user of that product was very, very appealing to me. Making this corn grow and our other crops is really, really what I strive for very good things from. Yields are important to me, quality is very important to me. And so we were really proud to put this variety right around the distillery this year so people could come out and actually see the corn that's going to go into next year's bourbon growing this year. We'll be harvesting this probably sometime in November.
What makes it a bourbon corn?
Really, it's my choice. I like the flavor profile that I'm getting out of this particular variety. And so we picked it out originally because it was a good yielding non-GMO corn. And it's transitioned into basically our go-to variety for our bourbon. We are finding that different varieties do make a difference. We will take it up to the farm. We have a drying system there. The combine takes the grain off the cob, and then we put that in our dryer. We dry it down to about 13% moisture. From there, it goes into a storage bin, and that's where we pull it out of when we're ready to grind for any of our spirits. When we started this process, we opened our doors with 3 different products: vodka, gin, and a moonshine, a corn whiskey that was never aged. And those 3 products are made from 100% corn. Now, when we start talking about bourbon, that we have 2 different types of, we add different grains to the corn. So bourbon has to be 51% or more corn. The other 49% can be other grains. We're using a soft red winter wheat. As you can see, when we bring the wheat up, it's in a nice flour form also. We found very early on that we had to do a really fine grind to make this all work in our facility with our equipment. Our water was what gives us the ability to do what we do where we do it. We're sitting on the Niagara Escarpment, and the Niagara Escarpment starts at Niagara Falls, New York, works its way up into Canada, comes back down through the UP and down the east side of Lake Winnebago, which is right where we are. And that fractured limestone rock is filtering our water, and giving us this high quality water. And thus, that's why we named the facility Ledge Rock Distillery. What you see behind me is all of our cooling water that we use. Essentially, when I need cold water at the process, it pulls it out of this tank, pumps it over there, comes back to me hot, and dumps right back into this tank. So it's on a big loop. And then outside the building is a chiller, and that chiller is on its own loop with this tank. And essentially, it keeps that water right at 49 degrees while we're processing. So 100% of our water comes back to us, gets recycled, and gets reused. So we go through very little water in this facility.
What do you have here?
This is our mash tun. This is where the process is going to start. When we are ready to go, we bring that ground grain that we brought up from the farm and essentially add that to a certain amount of water. We add some enzymes, and then we cook it up to about 180 degrees. While we're doing that, what we're trying to accomplish is to break the starches and the grains down from complex carbohydrates into simple fermentable sugars. So after 6 to 8 hours in this tank, we proceed to our fermenters. Once we're in the fermenter, we cool down the mash to about 88 degrees, and then we add our yeast. It's the yeast job then to chew through all the sugar that we created in the mash tun, and that converts it then to alcohol. After 3 to 7 days in the fermenter, we will move to our still. Now our still is very unique in that it basically is a 2 kettle still. Essentially, the reason behind the 2 kettles is twofold. The first being that when we pump that essentially 500 gallons of mash into the kettles, it splits between the 2 kettles, and we are able to heat up the process fairly quickly because we split that in half and we have a lot of surface area for the steam jackets on the kettles to work with. The other purpose behind the 2 kettles is that as the vapors start coming off the kettles, they actually end up in the same place in the middle behind this column. And when that happens, they run into each other. It's called a reciprocating still because essentially each kettle has to take turns pushing its vapor into the next phase. By that happening, we get a starting and stopping action that happens in the kettle. And when that happens, I can build a lot of proof in my alcohol. This is a hybrid still. So in addition to having the kettles, we have a reflux column that's tied into it. And if you look at the column, there are sight glasses on it. Behind each one of those sight glasses is a copper plate. So we manipulate those plates to also build proof in our alcohol. All of our grain mash, after we take the alcohol out of the grain, we haul that down to a local dairy farm. They have methane digesters on their farm. So they allow us to basically dump our mash into their digesters and they make electricity out of it. And then we buy our electricity back from the same company that they sell their electricity to. So we try to be as green as possible, and sustainability is a key for us. There's a lot of choices when it comes to aging the product. Our vodka and our gin are clear products. Obviously, they don't have to go into a barrel and age. They can be made, put into the bottle, and put on the shelf. Now, our bourbon and our corn whiskey, we want to get some color into that. And by law, we have to age our bourbon in brand new white oak charred barrels. So we're using a variety of barrels right now. We started out with a 53-gallon conventional barrel. That is the most common way to age your bourbon. It's also the slowest. So for a startup distillery that wants to get product on the shelf, we decided to maybe take a little bit of a leap of faith with our secondary barrels that we brought in. So we went with a little smaller barrel on the second run. And basically we did that because in theory, the smaller the barrel, the more surface area you have per gallon of liquid inside the barrel. We do our bottling with this gravity flow system. There's no automation on this whatsoever. Basically, it's calibrated by the height of the shelf. So the guy spends some time to get that shelf height just right so that we can get a 750 milliliter fill in our bottles. We're labeling all of our products at 750 milliliters. The government says we have to be within 15 milliliters of that. And this system's actually very accurate. We're finding by checking ourselves that we're usually within 1 milliliter, if not right on the money. Then we're ready for labeling. 1 bottle at a time, drop it on the labeler, hit the pedal. We're ready to go somewhere. So we sell out of our distillery here, out of our tasting room, in 150 locations throughout Wisconsin. Right here we have our Retzer Farm bourbon. It's our newest release. Would you care to try some?
Sure.
There you go.
Made right here on the ledge.
Cheers.
Cheers. I'm here in the office of the Pike Lake Unit with Superintendent Rob Westberg. Rob, tell us about the Pike Lake Unit.
Well, the Pike Lake Unit is enjoyed by many people that come and visit. The glacial landscape provides a unique experience. Starting with our hiking trails, the hiking is very popular. The hilly terrain that the glaciers have left behind, and also the viewpoints as you go along. And people are in the mood to get out, to work out, to live a healthier life, and even on a cold day like today is go out and do their trek through the forest. And what's exciting about hiking out here also is you don't know what you might run into, and wildlife is very abundant. And I tell visitors when they're out and about to keep your eyes open, because there's a good chance you might see a nice white-tailed deer around the corner. Pike Lake is 750 acres. And also right next to it is a 450-acre deep water lake, which is actually 45 feet deep. So for anglers, it's a wonderful place to come out and fish, which is very popular, both in the summer and we're planning ahead here for the ice fishing that's coming up. A lot of visitors do come from Milwaukee. It's a very easy drive, half hour up 41. And one big reason I hear from talking to our customers, they come up here, is they get an up north feel here. So Washington County has a beautiful landscape that's on display for them to come out and enjoy. We offer picnicking in the summer, kayak rentals. If you have your own kayak, you can bring that out also. You can go for a hike out into the forest. And we have the only dog beach, believe it or not, here in Washington County. And I have found that to become very popular because the younger generation, they bring their dogs with them everywhere they go. So I'm hearing sounds that I have to expand that beach to facilitate the number of dogs that come out. We have cross-country ski trails that we do groom for people to come out, and snowshoeing also is becoming very popular. We have a beautiful amphitheater that we're able to do headline programs throughout the summer, music, Shakespeare in the Park. I can't think of a better place than Pike Lake to come up and spend a day.
Well, thanks a lot, Rob. I hope a lot of folks come out to visit this season.
Well, thank you for coming out today, and I hope people that see this clip are encouraged to come out and see up to Washington County and visit the beautiful Pike Lake Unit of the Kettle Moraine State Forest.
It's a great place to explore.
Yes, it definitely is.
Here in the Pike Lake Unit office, visitors can get a close look at some current and former native wildlife species, like the cougar, the bobcat, and others. These are mounts, of course, but just a few miles from here at Shalom Wildlife Sanctuary, you can see some live animals, both native and non-native. Elizabeth Cramer was there last summer to visit the Syrian brown bear twins Lewis and Clark and meet some new residents with Shalom co-owner Dave Fechter.
Look at my teddy bear. Hi, buddy. Hey, teddy bear. How are you? Hi. Who's my boy? Yeah. So pretty. Hey, big boy. Yay. Have a round of applause. Yeah. The first zoos where humans could go and look at animals was in about the 1750s. That's when zoos actually started. And they were just brought in for entertainment. Look at this animal that you could see that lived on the other part of the world. Today, probably over half the zoos that are left are actually conservation for the survival of the animal.
The concept of zoos has changed over the years as environmental issues have become more urgent around the world. Questions about habitat have increased as animal populations have declined, and in some cases become extinct. To find out more about our local connection to conservation and check in with our bear friends, Lewis and Clark, we headed back to the Shalom Wildlife Sanctuary in West Bend.
How did you come to own this land?
Well, my wife and I, when we were children, this used to be part of a huge estate, and she was a housekeeper, I was a groundskeeper. A little later in life, there was an opportunity to buy the land, and this was our place where we grew up as children. And so it was our playground. And we started buying a little at a time, and eventually we accumulated 100 acres. To become a zoo, it wasn't the intent. The intent was basically just to preserve the land from development. But it just kind of happened that people started to come to see the deer that we had, And just one thing led into another, and now it's a zoo.
Can you tell us a little bit just about the Shalom Sanctuary in general?
Okay, we have 100 acres. It's a diverse type of land. We have ponds and lakes and streams and pine forests and hardwood forests, prairies. We are called Wisconsin's wildest zoo because we have huge areas with huge habitats. You can see herds of deer, herds of buffalo. And so that's kind of our thing with the animals is we want the animals to be happy. So everything that we do is for the benefit of the animal. Give them a nice place to live. This is our Syrian brown bears. This is my friend here, and his name is Clark. He's got a brother named Lewis, and Lewis is coming here. We've had them since they were 4 weeks old. And when we got them, they were 4 pounds. And we raised them in our house pretty much until they were probably about 2 months old. And then they got too big and we had to move them outdoors. They weigh about 700 pounds now. And this is as big as they're gonna get. They're 6 years old. And so they're mature now. Extremely healthy. You know, they're just shiny, nice and chubby for the winter. Most wildlife today is in trouble. If you kind of look at the human population and loss of habitat, and it's illegal to take any wild animal out of the wild. So what zoos do is they offer animals a safe haven so that they can be reproduced and taken care of so people can see them. And so Lewis and Clark are not fixed. They are able to reproduce. We often have people ask us, are you a sanctuary or a zoo? And my view is a zoo should be a sanctuary. It's where the animals are cared for, they're taken care of. They're given a big, beautiful environment to live in. And it's just it's kind of like a bank, an animal bank, so that in the future that those animals are available if they would need to be reintroduced into the wild. Most zoos today are owned by governments or large nonprofit organizations. And so when we think back, 20, 30, 40 years ago, there was a lot of roadside zoos, which have basically, due to requirements, have gone out of business, or they just financially couldn't take care of them. And so today, if you're going to have any of these wild animals, there's a very high standard that you have to maintain their needs, their health.
And the high standard, part of that is definitely the size of the enclosure, especially as these bears have grown.
Right, yeah. The average zoo has 1,000 square foot. That is the minimum requirement for a bear. So that's not very big. You know, a lot of zoos are landscaped so they look huge, but the actual square footage that the bear can run on is 1,000 square feet per bear. And so Lewis and Clark here have 2 acres. And so they are able to just go swimming in the pond, dig logs up, pull stones around, and they're happy bears.
Come on, pretty.
Of all of our animals in the zoo, the tiger is the most intelligent. They think, they reason.
So tell us about how endangered these tigers are.
Tigers in general, worldwide, are on the road to extinction. And if you go back to 1900, there were 100,000 in the wild. In 1990, there were 40,000 in the wild, and today there's 3,500. There's about 12,000 in zoos. So worldwide, there's about 15,000 tigers. And the reason they're declining is human population is increasing in Asia, and they're losing their habitat. The last white tiger that was taken out of the wild was 1951. So Ginger here is actually a descendant of that bloodline. And the last white tiger was killed in the wild in 1958. There are only 200 white tigers in the world.
Ginger, a white tiger, she doesn't even exist in the wild anymore.
Not anymore,
There
right.
are no more white tigers in the wild.
Correct. If they weren't for zoos, there'd be no white tigers in the world. They'd be gone. Tigers are in trouble. And so zoos are their only hope today because of the fact of what's happening in the wild. Also with zoos, there are tigers at several zoos around the country and around the world. And that's the diversity of those animals. In the wild, because there's only 3,500 animals, their habitat is shrunk. And so these animals are basically breeding amongst themselves. So the zoos are still They're sacred ground to reproduce.
What kind of a tiger is he?
Bengal tigers, they both are.
He is massive.
Yeah, he's a big guy. He's 9 feet tall. He weighs 500 pounds. So he might be heading over there. It is the tiger mating season, so if she comes over here, which she looks like she's going to do, she might get, you know, kind of tell him that she wants to mate.
Okay.
And that's what she's kind of doing now.
And so, now we know how important the mating is.
Right.
If they mate, is it going to be white or striped?
Both male and female have to have the white gene in them. And so if he has white in him, then there's a chance that they'll have white offspring. Hopefully it works out. We gave them a beautiful natural environment, so they're happy here. And hopefully they have offspring, and if they do have offspring, they will be donated to other zoos as well. You know, so we're just going to try to keep increasing the population.
How does the community reflect their interest in zoos like Shalom?
Many of our visitors have been coming for over 30 years, and they're very involved in what we do. When we finally had permission to get tigers, we posted on our Facebook page that we were going to be doing this, and if anybody wanted to contribute, that they could. We are for profit, so what that means, when people give to Shalom to help what we're doing, there's not a tax advantage for them. They actually are doing it 100% out of the kindness of their heart. And so people pitched in, they put raised funds for us, donated materials like the stone and some of the fencing. And people love tigers, and they realize that that this may be one of their last places to save them for the future.
Hopefully we'll be returning to the Shalom Wildlife Sanctuary this spring to welcome some very anticipated tiger cubs.
We saw some live elk in that last segment, and there's an elk mount here in the Pike Lake Unit office. Elk were extirpated from Wisconsin late in the 19th century, but they've been reintroduced to the state, and they're increasing in number every year. Long before European settlers arrived, Native Americans hunted elk for meat and also for their hides, bones, and antlers to make clothing and tools. In July of 2005, the remains of an ancient elk were found at Silver Beach Resort on Middle Eau Claire Lake in Bayfield County. The bones are now on display at the Barnes Area Historical Association Museum, where board member Sally Pease told us the story of this remarkable discovery.
Welcome to our museum. I'm on the Barnes Area Historical Association board. We're going to talk about the Silver Beach elk. A gentleman staying at one of the area resorts on the Middle Eau Claire Lake went to pull what he thought was a piece of driftwood, and it turned out to be these 8x6 ancient antlers of an elk. And this was in 2005. So they contacted a gentleman from the Hayward DNR. They went out and looked for more remains. 2 days later, they found the little Clovis point that we're not sure if it was used to cut the elk because it was found underneath the skeleton, but we're assuming that that was what they were using to cut the meat off the bones. Then we contacted the state and sent the bones down to the university to have it carbon dated. So it's not as old as we thought it was, but it's circa 1500 AD. So what you can see here are the antlers, and behind me in the case are some of the bones. This is all that we found. On the wall there's a shaded picture, so any of the shaded parts on the picture are what we have. We're really lucky that we found as much bones as we did, because usually, the bones would have been carried away, and what we think happened is they just butchered it where we found the remains and then carried the meat away. It was probably killed by early Native American peoples. We think they had a camp nearby, but we have not found any other signs that they were permanently camped here, so we're not sure if it was a hunting party or there was a settlement somewhere nearby. According to what we've learned, Elk were prevalent in this area at one time, and then we assume they either migrated due to the glacier or maybe they got hunted out from this area. They have been reintroduced down by Clam Lake. You know, they do travel quite a ways because we have had indications that they come from Clam Lake to Drummond, which is only about 16 miles away. We will be having it on permanent display. It'll be right here because the case is really too big to move very far. We have the rights to it because it was found here in Barnes, so it will be here on permanent display.
To learn more about the Silver Beach elk and this week's other features, log on to MilwaukeePBS.org and search local programs for Outdoor Wisconsin, or visit the Milwaukee PBS Facebook page. Well, next time I'll join grouse hunters from across the country for the first annual Rough Grouse Society Grouse Camp at Trees for Tomorrow in Vilas County. Elizabeth Cramer takes in a fish boil and goat parade in Door County and will attend Get Outdoors Day in Ozark County. Saying goodbye from Pike Lake in the Kettle Moraine State Forest, I'm Dan Small. Join us again next week for Outdoor Wisconsin.